Haruki Murakami is a cult writer who also manages to be a bestseller, and it's not too grandiose a statement to say that he revolutionized Japanese literature. His hit book, The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle, mesmerized the dramatist Stephen Earnhardt, and he set about transforming it for the theatre. We went to see the results of his 8 long years of work on the drama. This week, Edinburgh hosted the world premiere of an adaptation of the cult novel by Japan's most celebrated writer, Haruki Murakami. The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle is a spectacle which tries to get to the heart of the human condition. It's the story of Toru Okada, an unassuming everyman who is thrown into a state of confusion following the unexplained disappearance of his wife and his cat. As he struggles with loss and loneliness, he is contacted by a string of characters, including a mysterious caller who appears to know intimate details of his life, his wife's brother, an ambitious and sadistic politician, and May, a young schoolgirl who befriends him and then confronts him with his inadequacies.
I'm the only one in the world who knows you're down there. You have no boss. You have no wife. All you have is me. And all I have to do is walk away and you'll die.
You want to kill me?
I want you to suffer in a cold, dark place completely alone where no one cares whether or not you're alive.
Okada's quest to reconnect with his wife and to tempt her home from her mysterious exile is an examination of how much any of us really knows about those closest to us and of the loneliness of the contemporary city. As well as being a portrait of a marriage in crisis and part Chandler-esque detective story, the play explores wider issues reflecting Japan's wartime horrors and questions its place in the world today.
This notion that the Japanese should apologize for simply being human has led to what I call the emasculation of a nation.
The staging by Greg Pierce and former head of production at Miramax, Stephen Earnhardt, is technically complex, with the story told as much through projections and film, dance and puppetry as through live action.
His style is all about these layers of reality and the way that dreams are infused with our reality. So I wanted to use these different elements to sort of support that idea, whether it was film or puppetry. And that was our, big journey with this piece, was to how to break down these different layers and how can we represent them with these different theatrical elements.
7 years in the making, the production distills a 600-page novel into 2 hours of action. But did the multimedia treatment of Toru Okada's search for his wife and into the depths of his self strike a chord with at least our audience? Paul, did you feel that you've been taken into Okada's world? He was trapped in his world.
Yeah, it's interesting. The book is so complicated. It's like very interesting that somehow by managing to reduce it almost as like a stock, it's like they've had all these vegetables and they've reduced it to a stock cube and then they've thrown it in water and somehow still got the flavour across, which I thought was quite impressive because I didn't think they'd be able to do that. So all the things that are illogical and strange about the book that could fall apart on stage don't fall apart, and you are as engrossed with the performance as you are with the book. And what I loved about it as well is that as much as there is obviously at the middle distance the Chandler-esque element, for me what came across more is this is exactly the way I would love to see a film treatment of Philip K. Dick. This is exactly how I would like to see Kafka performed. This to me had that element of what he does so well.
And in fact, when we've been talking this evening about too many layers, too much stuff, in a way, did you not think this was incredibly elegant, the way that there's so many different things, projection, the fish, the maybe not the puppets, the screens?
Even the puppets works, I think. And I haven't read the book, but I love Japanese horror movies, and I thought this was very much like a Japanese horror movie, like The Ring or Dark Waters, and it has the recurrent theme of water and the well and stagnation and all those things. And even the colour schemes are very like Japanese horror movies. And I find it absolutely mesmerising. And all those different elements, which could be too much, are handled so lightly. There's dance, there's stuff you didn't even see in the clips there.
And extraordinary music by Bora Yoon. When you all come into the theatre, she's just playing away very elegantly and quietly, and then she underpins.
Well, I thought she was doing washing up, but it turns out she was refilling her Tibetan music bowls. So I kind of got on the wrong foot with her. But yes, the music's amazing. The whole production's amazing. And I also have lost my hipster credentials along with Denise, because I have to confess I haven't read the book either yet. But I thought it was almost like a David Lynch thing, and it is amazing. It's clearly a very ambitious novel, and it suggests that you can take an equally ambitious novel, put it and stage it, and have an experience that's close to cinema, but with the kind of the visceral interaction that you get from watching actors.
Yeah, and some of the motifs, the ethereal dress of his wife, that kind of very thin gauze.
Which becomes her skin
Which
halfway
becomes
through.
her skin, I know.
It's such a creepy play. And at the same time, you're kind of awestruck by how beautiful it is, but also slightly creeped out. And I think it's the soundscape, actually.
At times it does seem like a piece of... You're going to see a piece of music. And how I always hoped music would be in the 21st century is that it would just be illustrated so beautifully. There would be a sense of the performance being something else. So in a sense, this is a composition. It's a musical composition. It just happened to have this extraordinary other stuff going on. One of the things I couldn't believe that they were going to do, but somehow they do, maybe just by suggestion, maybe elegantly and just by distilling it, but the being down in the well. You know, because there's parts of the book where, you know, you're sitting down at the well. I mean,
looking for his cat.
I felt like that a few times during this week at the festival, sat at the bottom of the well. But it's done so elegantly on stage that you do get that feeling that there is a point to why he is at the bottom of the well and how he's working himself out.
In a Lynchian way, it never fully adds up, but you feel there are teasing hints of different genres. There's a bit of film noir and
puppetry. They get away with the puppet.
Yeah, that is surprising.
The best use of puppet at Edinburgh Festival
that is
this year.
surprising.
Stick that on a poster.
Yeah, well, maybe there won't be any puppetry next year. Maybe they'll ban puppetry from the Edinburgh
You guys are
Festival.
so hard on the puppetry. I like the puppetry. Why are you so down on the puppetry?
Come on with a puppet next time.
But just on that, the whole thing about this stage populated by all these things, people, projections, and yet at the heart of it is utter loneliness. And and that again is a soundscape as well, don't you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's the thing that everybody might not exist, and obviously in the book and indeed in this, the further it goes on, the further you don't know what reality is. And I hesitate to use this kind of vocabulary because people sometimes go, oh no, it sounds awful, but the fact is it is very provocative and very evocative, and it's very rich with meaning. So even though to an extent it is about those, what we could even say about Prudentia, really, the shadowland between reality and non-reality, it's done so well that it isn't pretentious, it isn't...
And you're kind of involved in a state of confusion. You can't get out of it, but you kind of... because it's so beautifully constructed,
puzzling it together, because it is the part of it that is the detective work. It is detective
in the audience's mind, which is what makes it so compelling.
And they're so happy,
and the audience was very engrossed and mesmerised.
I mean, they're so happy at the end when they it's almost like they've pieced it together. It's like a wonderful three-dimensional jigsaw.
It is yet another production which follows the whole theme of this festival, which is looking east and actually bringing us an experience. I mean, did you think that it was something unlike anything you'd ever seen before?
Yes, it was, and it wasn't like anything I'd ever seen in a theatre. But it did have that. I think that, you know, as we were saying, the music did give it an integrity, and it allowed it to explore these different, you know, put in things that would seem like it should have no place in it. The long monologue about being in the Manchurian desert and the Russia and the torture, and you're absolutely gripped. I mean, you know, I don't know what that has to do with it. Thematically, there's some link, but
that is interesting actually, because when people describe the books that he writes, they often use a litany of names: Pynchon, Chandler, Carver. You know, they go through, and then at the end they sort of, well, hang on, you know, maybe it's original. And it's a bit like this. You can sort of describe what it does and how it does it: multimedia, screens, puppets, this music. But in the end, it is original. It's an original piece of work.